Not all calls are heard with the ears. Some come as a vibration in the chest, like a glance from a bird that shouldn't be there, like a song that seems to contain a word that doesn't exist in any human language. If you're reading this, it's not out of curiosity. It's because something, an ancient memory, an intuition you can't explain, has brought you here. This text isn't a story. It's a threshold. A forgotten code, sealed by the sages of the Nile, is beginning to awaken. And you, without knowing it, could be one of the few able to decipher it. Because birds don't sing, they transmit. And the forest doesn't breathe, it waits. If you do this, if you cross this threshold with reverence, you might discover that nature doesn't just watch you, it speaks to you. Before starting this video, remember to subscribe and like. There are moments in life that aren't announced with words, but with presences. A bird that appears just when you're thinking of giving up. A song that interrupts the silence as if it knows what you're feeling. A flight that draws in the sky the answer you didn't know you were looking for. If this has happened to you, don't ignore it. It's no coincidence. It's the first whisper of the forest. The first echo of Thoth's code. For centuries, the wise men of the Nile affirmed that birds were not simple winged creatures, but messengers between worlds. That their song was not music, but language. That their flight was not movement, but direction. And that those who learned to listen with their hearts could understand what nature has been saying all along. But this knowledge wasn't taught, was remembered, because it's not about learning something new, but about awakening something ancient that already lives within you. It all begins with a feeling, an inexplicable attraction to birds, an intuition that tells you they're trying to tell you something, a certainty you can't explain but you can't deny either. It's as if the air thickens when they appear, as if time stops for a moment so you can receive the message. And even if your mind doubts it, your soul recognizes it. This is the call of the wind, the first step. You don't need to understand it. You just need to heed it. Because when a dove lands on your window the day you decide to open your heart, when a hawk circles above you just as you're contemplating a radical change, when a hummingbird stops in front of you at the exact moment you're about to give up, the forest is speaking, and you are being invited to respond. There is no ritual yet. There is no technique. Only presence. Only attention. Only the recognition that something is happening. Something that cannot be measured but can be felt. Something that cannot be explained but can be followed. Because the Thoth code is not activated with words, but with vibration. And that vibration begins when you decide to listen. So if birds have begun to appear in your life insistently, if their songs move you for no apparent reason, if their flights seem choreographed with your thoughts, don't ignore it. It's the beginning. It's the threshold. It's the moment when the forest ceases to be a landscape and becomes an interlocutor. And you, without knowing it, have begun to speak their language. They say the most powerful secrets are not hidden in the dark, but in the obvious. That the sacred is not lost, but simply forgotten. And that when human consciousness is ready, knowledge returns of its own accord. Such was the case with the Code of Thoth. It was not discovered in a hidden library or revealed by an enlightened master. It was found by accident, rolled up in a papyrus that no one could interpret, hidden among the golden treasures of a tomb that the entire world believed it had deciphered. When Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's tomb, the world was fascinated by the jewels, the amulets, the sarcophagi. But among the catalogued objects, there was one that was never shown. A papyrus whose markings didn't match any known system. It didn't speak of battles or royal lineages. It spoke of frequencies, of birds, of consciousness. And when a small group of experts in Hermetic languages managed to decipher it, what they found wasn't a story, it was a spiritual technology. The text didn't treat Thoth as a distant god, but as an architect of consciousness, a cartographer of the soul. He had designed 22 fundamental frequencies, each linked to a bird species. Not by their plumage, nor by their song, but by the type of wisdom they conveyed. Ravens spoke of death and rebirth. Eagles revealed purpose and vision. Sparrows brought messages of abundance. Each species was a channel, each song a key. But the most surprising thing wasn't the depth of the system, but its accessibility. It didn't require years of study or complex ceremonies. Just 3 elements: precise breathing, clear visualization, and the emission of vowel sounds that created a vibrational bridge between the human mind and the invisible communication network that birds have used since the beginning of time. It wasn't magic. It was attunement. However, the papyrus insistently warned of something. The code wouldn't be revealed to just anyone, only to those who approached it with humility, with pure intention, with a desire to serve. Because the power lay not in the technique, but in the practitioner's frequency. The map was there, but the territory was the heart. And if the heart wasn't aligned, the message wouldn't get through. The birds would fall silent. The forest would close in. This knowledge, stored for millennia, is awakening now. Not by chance, but because the vibration of the planet is shifting. The energetic barriers that protected this knowledge are dissolving. And ordinary people, without formal training, are beginning to experience synchronicities impossible to ignore. Birds appearing at key moments. Songs that seem to answer questions. Presences transforming the air. It's not a fad. It's not a superstition. It's the return of a forgotten science. A soul technology that was always there, waiting for humanity to remember how to listen. Because the language of birds isn't learned. It's activated. And if you're here, if something inside you has ignited upon hearing this, it's because the code is knocking at your door. And the forest is waiting for your answer. There comes a moment on the path where intuition is no longer enough. Where the signs become so precise, so insistent, that the soul begins to demand a way to respond. Not just to observe, not just to receive, but to participate. That's when the Thoth code reveals its practical key, the breath of the sacred ibis. It's not a technique to control, nor a trick to impress. It's a frequency. A vibrational door that, if opened with respect, allows human consciousness to tune into the invisible network that birds have used since the beginning of time. The ancients knew that the language of birds was not phonetic. It wasn't about translating songs, but about entering the field where those songs originate. And to do so, they designed a precise sequence. A pattern of breathing, visualization, and sound that transforms the state of consciousness and refines perception. It's not complicated, but it demands something few are willing to offer: purity of intention. The process begins in silence, in a place where nature still breathes uninterruptedly. Dawn and dusk are the most auspicious times, when the veil between worlds thins and communication flows more easily. There, sitting with a straight spine and eyes closed, the practitioner leaves the noise of the world behind. It's not about asking or waiting. It's about offering presence. Breathing follows a sacred rhythm. Inhale through your nose for a count of 4, while visualizing a golden light descending from the sky and entering through the crown of your head. Then hold your breath for 7 counts, allowing that light to expand into your heart, warming the center of your chest. Finally, exhale through your mouth for 8 counts, projecting that light into your surroundings, like a silent offering. As you exhale, internally repeat the mantra, Tich Ram Ma. It's not a phrase. It's a vibrational formula. It means, Thoth, bring me the message. This cycle is repeated 21 times. Not as a routine, but as a ceremony. With each breath, the mind quiets, the body lightens, and perception sharpens. In the end, the practitioner isn't waiting for a miracle. They are simply present. And it is in that presence that the extraordinary happens. When you open your eyes, you don't search for anything. You don't force anything. You observe. And when a bird enters your field of vision, you don't interpret it logically. You feel it. The message comes as an inner certainty, an understanding that needs no words. It's an intuitive release, a response that resonates in the heart, not the mind. Over time, this practice reveals patterns. Birds don't appear randomly. Each species, each behavior, each song has an intention. And the practitioner begins to recognize the categories of messages: transformation, vision, love, abundance, protection, expression, divine connection. Not because someone taught them, but because their consciousness remembers them. The breath of the ibis is not a technique for obtaining answers. It's a way of fine-tuning the soul, of turning perception into communion, of stopping seeing nature as something external and beginning to participate in its secret dialogue. And when this happens, when the message arrives effortlessly, without doubt, without need for confirmation, the forest has responded. and the code of Thoth has begun to speak. There are those who reach the threshold. They feel the vibration. They practice the ibis breath. They receive the first messages. The birds appear. The song resonates. The forest opens. And for a moment, everything seems to flow. The air becomes lighter. The signs multiply. The heart beats in a different rhythm. But then, without knowing why, everything fades. The birds no longer approach. The song fades. The forest falls silent. And the practitioner, confused, wonders if they have done something wrong, if the ritual has failed, if the bond has been broken. But it's not the code that fails. It's not the forest that closes in. It's the practitioner's heart that has stumbled upon the invisible traps that block communication. Because this path isn't sustained by technique. It's sustained by frequency. And there are errors that, though subtle, completely detune the channel. They're not seen. They're not named. But they're felt. And the birds, which perceive vibrations beyond language, simply fly away. The first is the most common, the most human, the most difficult to recognize. The ego. Wanting to control the process. Forcing a response. Using the gift to feel special, superior, chosen. That vibration, even disguised as enthusiasm, is a distortion. Birds don't respond to the desire for power. They respond to the call of service. If the heart seeks recognition, the forest closes in. Because the language of birds is not negotiable. It is honored. And the ego, however subtle, interferes like background noise that distorts the signal. The second error is more sophisticated but equally fatal. The logical mind. Receiving a message and trying to dissect it. Fitting it into a learned symbolic system. Searching in books for what can only be felt. The language of birds isn't translated. It's intuited. It's breathed. It's allowed in. It's a code that isn't decoded with the intellect but with presence. And when the intellect tries to master it, the heart closes. The channel is blocked. The song becomes noise. The message becomes confusion. The third obstacle is impatience. We live in a culture that demands immediate results. Quick revelations. Constant confirmations. But this path is like sowing in sacred ground. It requires time, perseverance, trust. Those who practice once and expect a grand epiphany are disappointed. And that disappointment generates noise. The forest doesn't respond to noise. The forest responds to fertile silence, to active waiting, to presence without demands, to dedication without a timeline. The fourth error is the most invisible but the deepest, the lack of reciprocity. Wanting to receive without offering, asking for signs without giving thanks, waiting for guidance without committing to care. Communication with the sacred is an exchange. And if there is no offering, there is no bond. Birds are not messengers on demand. They are guardians of a pact. And that pact demands respect, gratitude, and surrender. It's not enough to ask. You have to sustain. It's not enough to listen. You have to care. It's not enough to receive. You have to give back. These errors are not punishments. They are not judgments. They are frequency imbalances. They are interferences that disrupt the channel's harmony. And when they are corrected, when the practitioner cultivates humility, patience, presence, and gratitude, something changes. The dissonance dissolves. The connection flows. The song returns. The forest speaks again. And then the code reveals its final key. It is not a technique. It is not a daily practice. It is a single act, a consecration, the ritual of permanent activation. The moment when the connection ceases to be occasional and becomes part of your being. But this ritual cannot be performed in haste, nor from a desire to control. It can only be summoned from vibrational maturity, from profound surrender, from the decision to become a channel, not out of curiosity but out of commitment. Because the language of birds is not a game. It's a responsibility. It's an alliance with the invisible. And whoever honors it becomes the guardian of a knowledge that isn't taught, it's remembered. When the practitioner has crossed the invisible traps, the ego, the logical mind, impatience, lack of reciprocity, and has tuned their frequency with humility, presence, and gratitude, the forest begins to respond differently. No longer with scattered signals, but with a sustained vibration. no longer with fleeting appearances but with constant presences. And it is then that the code reveals its final key, the ritual of permanent activation. This ritual isn't just another practice. It's not something repeated every week. It's a unique act, a consecration. The moment when the connection ceases to be occasional and becomes part of one's being. It isn't performed out of curiosity or a desire for answers. It's performed as an offering, as a pact, as a declaration of service. To summon him, elements are required that cannot be bought or forced. 7 feathers from 7 different birds, found as gifts along the path, never taken willingly. Pure water collected from a living source. A white candle without symbols, without marks. And the night of the new moon when the sky is silent and the earth listens. In a place where nature still breathes uninterruptedly, a forest, a mountain, a pristine beach. A circle is drawn with the feathers, all pointing toward the center. Their size and color are irrelevant. What matters is their origin. Each one must have arrived as a sign, as a presence, as a spontaneous offering. The candle is placed in the center of the circle. The practitioner sits facing east, the point of rebirth, the place where the sun rises and the breath of the ibis begins. But this time it's not 21 cycles. It's 49. 7 times 7. The culmination of a cycle of learning. The opening of a new pact. Each inhalation is a call. Each exhalation a surrender. The body becomes a bridge. Breath a code. Time an offering. When finished, the candle is lit. The water is taken between the hands. Its temperature, its vibration, its memory are felt. And the declaration is pronounced not as a formula, but as a vibratory truth. Great Thoth, Lord of Wisdom, Guardian of Mysteries. I come before you with humility and reverence. I ask permission to become a living bridge between the worlds. I swear to use this gift for the greater good and in service to the evolution of consciousness. Then you take a sip. The rest is poured into the base of the candle. Water and fire. Intention and spirit. Union. And then you wait. In absolute silence. No expectations. No anxiety. Only openness. It may take minutes. It may take hours. But when the bird appears, when it crosses the circle, when it perches nearby, when it sings from the invisible, there is no doubt. The forest has responded. The bond has been sealed. From that moment on, communication ceases to be practical. It becomes natural. The practitioner no longer seeks signs. The signs seek them. Birds become constant guides. Decisions become intuitive. Synchronicities multiply. The heart, tuned to the frequency of the forest, begins to remember things it never learned. Sacred places, healing plants, memories of ancient civilizations. Not as information but as resonance, as if the soul were reading a living library. Because the Thoth code doesn't just open a channel. It opens a planetary consciousness that has been waiting for someone to hear it. And when that happens, when the practitioner becomes a guardian, a channel, an ally, loneliness disappears. Life ceases to be a struggle and becomes a dance. And the bird song is no longer background music. It's conversation. It's guidance. It's confirmation. Whoever has sealed the ritual no longer walks alone. They walk with the forest. They walk with the sky. They walk with Thoth. And every flight, every song, every presence is a reminder that the invisible world is awake. And you finally are too. When the ritual is complete, there are no fireworks or spectacular visions. Only silence. A silence so profound it seems to hold all the answers. And then, without effort, without thought, without logic, you understand. The bird's song is not sound, it is a message. Flight is not movement, it is direction. Presence is not coincidence, it is confirmation. You are no longer an observer of the forest. You are part of its consciousness. Your life ceases to be a straight line and becomes a dance of signs, of synchronicities, of invisible dialogues. And when someone asks you how you did it, you will have no words, only a certainty in your heart. I did this, and the bird started talking to me. There comes a point on every sacred journey when the path disappears beneath your feet. Not because you've lost your way, but because you've reached the place where maps no longer work. where direction gives way to presence, where even the forest that once whispered your name through rustling leaves and winged messengers falls quiet. At first, it feels like abandonment. You remember the early days, the songs that arrived with meaning, the synchronicities that stitched your life together, the comfort of feeling guided. And now nothing. Only stillness. Only the echo of your own breathing in the vast cathedral of silence. You wait for the birds to return, for a feather to fall, for the sky to pulse with signs again. But nothing stirs. The forest seems asleep. You speak your invocation softly into the air, but the air gives no reply. The mind begins to question, the heart begins to ache. Was it real? Was it imagination? Had you only dreamed the code? This is the first veil of the silence of return, the veil of doubt. It arises not to punish, but to purify. Because what you are losing now is not the connection. It's the dependency on the connection. The sacred withdraws to see if you will still listen when nothing answers. It is the ultimate test of faith and the deepest act of love. You begin to sense it, that this silence is alive. It breathes, it watches, it waits. It is not emptiness, but presence without form. It is the voice of the forest turned inward, echoing not through sound, but through vibration. Each time you close your eyes and enter this vastness, you realize that silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of everything unspoken. The ancients called this stage, the return of the master into the heart. It is when knowledge stops being external and starts to awaken from within. All the mantras, all the rituals, all the feathers gathered and prayers whispered, they were never meant to summon the divine outside of you, but to remind you of the divine you already are. The code of Thoth was not written on papyrus. It was inscribed in the rhythm of your pulse. The forest, the birds, the symbols, they were mirrors reflecting what you had forgotten. In the silence of return, that mirror shatters. And for the first time, you see without reflection. You see with the eyes of the forest itself. You feel the breath of the wind not upon your skin, but as your skin. The song of a bird no longer reaches your ear. It passes through your blood, through memory, through light. You are no longer listening to the world, you are listening as the world. The silence deepens. It expands until it fills every corner of perception. At first, it's disorienting. Your thoughts become slower. The usual noise of the mind, the worries, the names, the measures of time, all dissolve into an ocean of stillness. In that stillness, something ancient awakens. A heartbeat beneath your heartbeat. A rhythm so vast that you can no longer tell if it's yours or the planet's. You sit for hours, perhaps days. The line between meditation and existence disappears. The mind stops asking. The body stops seeking. And what remains is awareness, raw, luminous, immense. Awareness that observes even silence dissolving into itself. Then something miraculous happens. You begin to perceive sound again, but not as before. The forest speaks once more, but differently, not through the outer ear, but through the subtle senses of the soul. You start to hear the pulse of the stones, the murmur of sap flowing in trees, the magnetic song of distant stars. Each vibration, each shimmer, each ripple of energy forms part of a grand symphony that was always playing. Only now your frequency matches it. This is the true essence of the silence of return. To realize that the language of birds was never about birds. It was about awakening the resonance between all things. About remembering that communication is not transmission. It is communion. The forest does not send messages to you. It sings with you. And that harmony is the most sacred dialogue of all. The ego resists this realization. It wants signs, it wants confirmation, it wants to feel chosen again. But the forest teaches you the final lesson, that the chosen one is the one who has stopped needing to be chosen. The moment you stop searching for meaning, meaning finds you. The moment you release the desire to listen, the universe begins to speak in every silence. And then, one morning, after the longest stretch of stillness, something shifts. A soft wind moves through the trees. A single feather drifts down, spinning gently as it falls. You do not reach for it. You simply watch it land, perfectly still at your feet. You know what it means, not because you interpret it, but because you remember. You smile. You close your eyes. And in that instant, the silence bursts into song, not around you, but within you. Every heartbeat echoes with the pulse of the cosmos. Every breath aligns with the rhythm of wings unseen. You have returned, not to the forest but to yourself. The silence of return was never an ending. It was the bridge, the invisible threshold between seeker and source, between listening and becoming, between sound and silence. You understand now, the birds never stopped singing. You simply learned to hear the spaces between their notes. And it is there, in that sacred space, where the divine speaks most clearly. Every revelation, if true, must one day outgrow the heart that first received it. The code of Thoth was never meant to remain a secret. It was a vibration seated in humanity, waiting for the moment when enough hearts could remember how to hear. And now, quietly and without announcement, that moment arrives. It begins as a murmur across the world. A child hearing melodies at dawn that no one else can. A scientist noticing flocks tracing perfect spirals over ancient lands. People everywhere pausing midday, sensing a tremor of recognition. Birds gather in strange formations, their songs shift tone. Dreams synchronize. A single word moves through the collective breath of humankind. Remember, those who once practiced the breath of the ibis feel it first. An invisible current linking them across continents. No words, only resonance. The air vibrates differently, the planet itself seems to breathe. The forest, long silent, begins to sing again, not to individuals, but to the species that had forgotten its place in the choir. Soon, subtle changes appear. People grow gentle without reason. They plant, protect, give thanks. Children are born who look at the sky and see messages written in flight. Science measures anomalies it cannot name. Poets call it the Earth awakening. Because that's what it is, the planet remembering its own voice through us. Thoth's code was never a language of birds, it was the frequency of unity. When a heart listens without demand, the earth answers. When a human breathes in rhythm with wind and wing, creation completes its circle. The birds were never messengers, they were reminders, living echoes of the harmony we once shared. Now the silence between heartbeats grows luminous. The air itself carries a vibration of calm intelligence. Mountains hum with unseen tones, rivers glow with quiet memory. It is as if the planet has decided to speak in its original language again. And humanity, after millennia of forgetting, finally understands. In this new awareness, separation dissolves. You no longer speak to the world, you speak as the world. You feel its breath moving through your lungs, its pulse beneath your skin, its dreams inside your sleep. Every act of kindness becomes translation. Every moment of presence, a sacred reply. And still, something even deeper begins to unfold. The light of consciousness expands beyond the human form, flowing into trees, rivers, clouds, spreading through the nervous system of the planet. We start to remember that the divine does not dwell above us, but through us. That every wing, every wave, every whisper of wind is part of the same great conversation of being. Then the earth begins to dream in color again. Auroras appear where they never have before, violet rivers across black skies. Whales alter their migration songs, echoing frequencies once thought lost. Deserts bloom overnight with flowers unseen for centuries. Time itself loosens its grip. Moments fold inward like petals returning to the bud. Humanity moves slower, speaks softer. Cities begin to hum in harmony with the horizon. Even the machines, those born of steel and logic, seem to pause, as if listening to the rhythm beneath their own circuits. And somewhere between pulse and silence, a threshold opens, not above nor below, but within. Memory returns like a tide. We remember the covenant written before language. That consciousness and matter are one breath exhaled in two directions. That creation was never something that happened. It is something that is happening endlessly now. One night, under a sky woven with stars, you sense it, the hum of life resonating as one heartbeat. No longer human and earth, listener and forest, seeker and teacher. Only unity. Only the original vibration that birthed creation, singing itself back into existence through your awareness. And so, when someone asks what changed, you will not explain. You will simply listen, to wind, to water, to the pulse beneath your ribs, and whisper the truth that needs no language. When we remembered how to listen, the earth remembered how to sing. As always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. See you in the next video.